had it on and turned it off maybe about 30 minutes ago. Is anything more developed?
No, not so much. Well, I can see.
Hey everyone, looks like we are now streaming to YouTube, just for everyone's information.
Okay,
Thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome.
That came probably within feet of our crew. We did have to move further up, but what I can show you, there are protesters on the other side of the street. There were people banging on the Hotel Bennett doors and windows just a few minutes
Oh, no.
side of the street right now. They are right now breaking into the Hotel Bennett.
What?
Well, they're showing it so people
Just a few minutes ago. Right now, you're watching that going a few minutes ago.
Oh, it just breaks my heart.
Into Hotel Bennett.
They're going crazy around here now.
It is definitely a very active scene right now, as people are forcefully making their way into this hotel here. And this is further up from that line. The line is all.
They're going at the Bennett Hotel, guys.
Yes, I'm watching it.
No, I can hear
Crashing of windows, see fellas throwing something right there.
Yeah.
Breaking the windows and stuff out. Boy, we never had this to happen around here since I've been here. Ground and throwing it, see, picking up the rocks from the ground there and throwing it.
so sad.
Our city's better than this.
Oh, I know. We
Oh,
always
wow.
think that
They're breaking all the windows in the Hotel Bennett.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
All of them.
After they've been shut for 3 months.
Right.
oh, this isn't what we do. We always lead set a good example for the rest of the country.
From around here myself.
These folks aren't from Charleston.
No,
Charleston
Really?
our city.
not.
No, there's no way.
No way.
These
Yeah.
have been going on for 7 hours. People could be here from all over the state by now.
Yeah.
Right.
They're not from here.
No, there's no way.
The march today was just so peaceful.
It was perfectly peaceful today up until
Unbelievably so, yes.
Right. When I was watching it earlier and, again, was, so moved by, yet again, Charleston sets the example.
Tracy, who is Sam Spence?
Guys, hey guys. We're live on Zoom right now, so I think we need to be quiet, okay?
Jennifer, I'm not sure.
Looks like they're moving up meeting, or moving up.
Stand by there with your live shot. Keep that up for us as we're watching these images come in. You see those cars rolling through there, and I think the Charleston Police Department has issued a warning telling citizens to stay away from the downtown area right now, if at all possible. Cars driving through there, that's not helping anyone. That's not helping law enforcement officers, and it's also hurting the safety of those protesters there with cars going in and out. Obviously, a very active scene there.
Pushing up.
Keep going, Lillian. What are you saying?
Yeah. Right now, we're gonna walk very carefully. We're trying to stay behind this line of protesters as far as we can, but safely show you what's going on. They have been breaking the windows of the Hotel Bennett. They have been breaking the windows of the shop here on King Street. The farther down they go, they're continuously pushing. They pick up those blocks from back all the way near Meriden Square, and they are continuously making their way up King Street right now. If we can cross the street right now, I'll kind of show you a bit about what's going on. Oh, actually, I want to show you this right now. This is a Live 5 News car.
Somebody's got the their audio on.
Live 5 News car, as we were reporting just
Hey, everybody. Good evening.
Evening, Mayor.
Mayor and Chief.
Hey, Mayor.
Do we have most everybody on board, you think?
I did just see a message from Councilman Brady that he's had to dial in.
Okay.
So I don't know if someone's been able to let him in.
I'm muting him now.
Okay.
All right. Are we at the witching hour? We're beyond that. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? I'd like to call this meeting, emergency meeting to order, please.
Councilwoman Del Chapo,
Here.
Councilmember Shealy,
Here.
Councilmember Saccharin, Councilmember Mitchell,
Here.
Councilmember Brady,
Present.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here, Saccharin's here also.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Waring,
Here.
Councilmember Seekings, Councilmember Seekings, Councilmember Shade, Councilmember Shade, Councilmember Griffin,
Here.
Councilmember Appel,
Here.
Councilwoman Jackson,
Here.
Mayor Tecklenburg.
Here. Thank you all for joining us this evening. It's a serious day in the city of Charleston. I know you, along with me, want to be aligned with those who seek justice, but it's important that they do so peacefully and that we maintain order, law and order here in the city. Of course, as has happened across the country, we had a gathering, protest, observance today. We estimate some thousands of folks were a part of that, and it went on for some period of time. And unfortunately, the tail end of it, remaining smaller group, probably 50 to 100 individuals, continued their marches through the street. And then I'd say the first significant kind of civil disobedience was to try to shut down I-26 at the Ravenel Bridge. We managed to get them to disperse there, but they continued to parade through the city. And as dark fell, they began to misbehave badly, breaking windows in some stores and causing other mayhem. And so upon the advice of Chief Reynolds here in consultation with the Chief of Police in Mount Pleasant and North Charleston, and in order to make it more of a regional effect rather than just having a curfew just in the city and having folks potentially leave the city and go try to create mayhem elsewhere, we asked the county to impose a curfew countywide this evening. And then I'd like to ask council to reinforce that tonight with our own city curfew, which will also cover Councilmember Del Chapo, the portion of our city that's not in Charleston County. And the request for that would be from 7 till 11 o'clock this evening until 7 in the morning. And I think before I run out of gas, I'll ask Chief Reynolds to give you a report from his perspective of what's happening right now. And then we'll be glad to entertain any questions that council may have or any comments or suggestions you may have. Chief?
Mayor, before you begin, just let the record show I'm on the meeting. This is Peter Shea.
Thank you, Councilmember Shea.
Steve Kings is here too.
Thank you.
So I'll just I'll just say that it's a sad day, sad night in the city of Charleston. There was a lot of people who peacefully protested today. I think we had up to a couple thousand people that started at 2, marched down King Street, went to White Point Gardens and a variety of other locations with really a minimal of issues. There were some conflicts between the group and some people from the Trump kind of side of the issues with MAGA hats on. But even that was minimal. There was some spray painting of the statue at White Point Gardens and some other things that occurred. With the rain, the majority of the good people left, and which often happens. I was in the riots in Baltimore City when they kicked off and during that week. And unfortunately, this environment is not a whole lot unlike that. We've had vehicles damaged. I think when we wake up tomorrow morning, it's going to be a very sad day in our city. A lot of windows broken along King Street. From the beginning, even though there's not a lot of information to indicate that this was going to be that large of a group, knowing the tenor of the nation, knowing the issues in other parts of the state, other parts of the country, what was happening in other cities. I've been on the phone with my counterparts in Columbia and Myrtle Beach, of course, here with Chief Ritchie, Reggie Burgess, Al Cannon, and others in our area, Dwayne Lewis, all of whom have given us resources, all of whom have been talking about this before it kicked off. We had information that this could, I think, like any protest, head in a bad direction. At this point, we've deployed gas in multiple locations. We've made arrests. We have officers being assaulted with bottles, hit in the head. We have officers being attacked. We have citizens being attacked. And so needless to say, I think a curfew was a small step in the right direction. And we have a lot of work to do. We're just starting this whole effort. We're far from over. Been here and done this before, and it's not going to look good when the sun comes up tomorrow in our city. We're going to have a lot of cleanup to do. I've talked with the mayor about all of our partners, reaching out to their partners. Reverend Manning, I spoke to just a few minutes ago. I know that the mayor has talked to Dot Scott and a variety of other people. We need to respect people's ability to say what they want to say. I share, in fact, a lot of the opinion that I think many of you on this call share, that it was deplorable, I think is the term that I've used to describe what happened in Minneapolis, but it's deplorable what's happening in our city right now also. So we have to be responsible. We have to do things safely. We have to do it within the color of the law. And right now there's a small number of people, less than 100 people, who many of whom, I'm guessing, I don't know this as a fact, as we begin our arrests, we'll find out. But I'm guessing many of them are not from this city. And I'm sure you've seen, I was on the phone, I was actually getting ready to send troops to help Skip Holbrook, who's the chief in Columbia. And I had to hold him back because we couldn't let him go. And I just got off the phone with Dwayne Lewis a little while ago. He's sending me a dozen officers and one of his deputy chiefs. We've gotten some equipment from Charleston County Sheriffs. We've got their helicopter up in the air helping issue warnings and other things that are helpful when you disperse gas. And so we have our hands full. We have a lot of work to do. And I think the mayor mainly wanted to make sure that you all knew firsthand that we're dealing with this. And that we have a lot of things going on in the city right now.
All right, thank you, Chief. Any questions for myself or the chief? Councilmember.
Yeah, Peter Shea.
Councilmember Griffin, I saw your hand up first. If you don't mind, then Peter Shea.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Chief, for all of your hard work so far. Obviously, we have a lot to work to do. You know, I support your department 100%. I know that at 11 o'clock, as we try to shut down our city to get back to the way we should act as Charlestonians tomorrow. I understand you're going to have to probably have to break up some crowds, but I know that you'll do so peacefully. You'll do so with the utmost respect. And hopefully tomorrow morning, our city is going to look like something that's never looked like before, because no matter what circumstance we've ever had in this city, we've never had any sort of rioting. We've never had any sort of looting. And I'm really, really upset right now that anybody has resorted to that. But I want to let you know that I will be available all day tomorrow to help King Street and Market Street and whoever else. If they need people to help clean up downtown, I'll be the first one there with a broom in my hands, because the only way we're going to get this back to good again is together. And our business community has struggled mightily for several months now. And now for them to maybe go to their shops tomorrow and have all of their windows beat out and glass everywhere and have to shut down for longer, that's just not something that I want to stand by and let happen. So I wanted to let you know that whatever help we can do as council members, I'm sure several other council members would love to help too. I want to offer my resources, but my question is, what are we going to do tomorrow to ensure that what happened today doesn't happen again tomorrow?
We certainly will consider all the tools in the toolbox, depending on what happens. We certainly may have to ask you to continue a curfew, and it may be very strictly limited in the event of another gathering.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that that option was still on the table, even if we have to do it earlier tomorrow. We've got to get this city back on the right track. And today was a great day, but as the light turned to the darkness and the sunset, we've just had some bad actors these last couple hours, and everybody in Charleston is watching it live on TV. People with baseball bats knocking out windows left and right. Chief, I'll be praying for you and your officers tonight, and I'm here to help tomorrow in any way we can to get our city back again.
Yeah, and I'll say, I think part of your question, I think part of the answer is that our community comes together just as you're describing, and that we send a very clear message that we're not going to tolerate this type of behavior, and that those people that want to do harm to our city are not welcome. And that voice needs to be loud and clear from everybody. So it's one thing to denounce the violence that happened in the murder, frankly, that happened in Minneapolis, and demand justice. But I believe that our city is going to have to come together and speak clearly and loudly with total solidarity in a similar way that we demand peace in our own city. And I think that message will be heard if the right people speak loudly, equally in that regard. I think that's going to be important.
Absolutely. Councilmember Shade.
Thank you, Mayor. And first of all, Chief, thank you for all the wonderful work that you're doing on this. I'm very proud of our police department, and you know that you have all of our support. A couple of questions. Number one, what is the condition of the officers who are injured? The second question is, should we ramp this curfew so that it goes into effect earlier tomorrow, right at before dawn, before dusk, before it gets too dark? And the other thing is, what is it that we need to do as city council members to show our solidarity with you and the rest of the city so people know that we're acting in concert?
I think, I'll let you as a body decide what that looks like, but I think that's going to be important. I think that a very clear message coming out of this, that this can never occur again, that this is unacceptable, that we respect the rights, the opinions, the protests, the voices of the men and women who were here today. But this violence does not represent the people in that body that had that message. This is anarchy. These are people that want revolution. These are people that want to do harm across America, that would just as soon be happy and celebrating burning our buildings down. And I got to say, I, for one, have no patience for that and zero tolerance for that. I have total tolerance for peaceful protests, and that's our job, to protect people. And it was a joy to do that today, and to see people show their raw emotions and voice their opinions peacefully. But this is something much different. And I think and we need to make it very crystal clear that one is not the same as the other.
Well, how about your officers?
Yeah,
How would
Peter, I got to tell you, I don't know. It's literally happened in the last few minutes where we had people being chased around by these folks and being pelted with rocks and bottles and all kinds of stuff.
And should we move this curfew up earlier tomorrow?
You know, I think we got a good start with this one, and we'll have to assess as we go along. You know, I think we just got to continue. We have a plan and a process and resources in place, and we'll see how tonight goes. And I think we'll have to take it each one day at a time.
Okay. Thank you, Chief.
I will tell you that I was been in, like I said earlier, on the phone with Carl Ritchie, with Al Cannon, with Reggie Burgess and others, but specifically those guys in this region. And we've been in sync about doing a curfew and about our deployments and about helping each other.
Absolutely. Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Chief Reynolds, for all that you're doing. And you know, that solidarity and what you said, I know each council member can speak for themselves, but we're all on the same page with you on that. Do you think you have enough manpower for tomorrow? Because the pattern in these other cities has seemed to be the good actors are out when the sun is up, and as the evening comes, then this bad element comes out, the ugliness comes out. So one question, do you think you have enough manpower just with our force only, or do we need National Guard to assist? And the second thing is, in the event that a group like Black Lives Matters or any other group wants to speak, having it done at Marion Square versus maybe Brittlebank Park, maybe easier, I guess, if we learn from this, having them choose, any group choose where they want to speak versus in the event that you have an aftermath like this, you know, being able to cordon them off at Brittlebank Park would be certainly a lot better, I think, anyway. You're the professional in the area than at Marion Square. So just kind of wanted to throw that out for tomorrow and maybe the day after. But first thing, the manpower question.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Councilmember. The problem with these types of groups, most protest groups are well organized. They have a point of contact. They have structure. They have some level of values. They have a goal. They have a message. They have, and Chip Searson's a great example. He knows everybody, right? He's a good communicator. People reach out to him. Thomas Dixon, Shaquem Aket, all those people reached out to him in the last few days. And we've been able to actually have posts taken off social media. I mean, good dialogue. The groups that are causing this harm, they're not, they're terrorists is what they are. They're domestic terrorists. They're not well organized. They intentionally don't reveal what their plans are. They do things on the dark web in terms of communication and strategy and hiding their implements of their trade. And so it's not as easy as what you described. But I would agree with you for a variety of reasons that Brittlebank Park would be significantly better than having them in the center of our city on King Street. So for a lot of reasons, we need to look at that and think about that. The second question you had was about our staffing. I don't think you can ever have enough people. I tell our folks, because we weren't going to deploy people. There wasn't really a lot of intel to believe that this 2 o'clock was going to be a significant event. But based on what was going on around the country, I said, well, even if it's a total nothing burger, there's nothing to it. I want us to deploy our assets so that we can get a rep in, so that we can, all our team leaders, our command element, our logistics, everybody can just be together today, talk about it. Because this is, even if it didn't kick off here, I knew it was going to kick off in Columbia or somewhere. So we had our assets in place. And one of the things in my position that I need to think about is how do we take care of our people, right? And just now, tonight, how do we feed them? How do we make sure that they're getting plenty of rest? How do we make sure that they're getting hydrated? Those are really basic things, right? And part of that means that we have rotations. So we're going into a 12-hour shift now, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We started this morning about 8. We had a roll call at 12:30, and we deployed shortly thereafter. The people that have been going since then, Jason Bruder, just as an example, is our CDU commander. He's been leading this thing from the very beginning. He's still out there. We couldn't relieve him because things went sideways. And so he's been on the bridge. I think they probably walked 15 miles today easily. And so your question is a good one, because I can tell you, sitting on a street corner outside of Camden Yards in Baltimore City, it could easily chew up 100 officers to take one intersection, right? So that you don't get flanked on each side, so that you have grenadiers for gas, so that you have a command element, so that you have some level of relief. So when you think about that, and you think about the intensity of a deployment like this, and you think about people being assaulted, our citizens were assaulted tonight. So not only do we have property damage, we had others assaulted, we had our officers assaulted. So we have to think about the bodies. And I always would rather have more and not need them. Just like today, I said, I want to deploy, even if we don't need them, it's worth doing it, than need them and not have them. So frankly, I don't think we can ever have enough bodies. It's a good question.
We'll continue to ask for help.
So we're going to continue to ask for help. I've been on the phone with Chief Keel all day, multiple times. SLED has offered, they're in our command post right now, our local Lieutenant Sig Finney. And we have fire rescue, we have other elements that are with us as well.
All right, could I entertain a motion to
Move for approval.
approve this emergency
Second.
ordinance and the curfew?
I'll second.
Any discussion on the curfew ordinance? All in favor, please say
Mayor?
aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Susan, did you want to add a comment?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to mention two things real briefly. I had sent out a corrected version a few minutes ago, so that would be the version that you would all be voting on tonight. But as currently written, the ordinance goes into effect immediately. So I didn't know, based upon Councilmember Shade's question, whether, and what the chief said, whether or not this was not to go into effect immediately, but to hold off until tomorrow. So I just wanted to mention that the way it's written now, the curfew would go into effect immediately, 11 p.m. tonight to 7 a.m. tomorrow. So if that is not what council wants to do, we need to have a motion to amend that time.
No, that's fine. That's fine. And that's what we just approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is Councilmember Brady.
Yes, sir, Councilmember Brady.
I just had a quick question. Under the coronavirus, the emergency ordinances that we passed on Tuesday, I thought I remember seeing that it was unlawful to gather in a group of more than 10 at a police officer's discretion if it was a matter of public health. So is that ordinance good enough to make sure that we can disperse crowds that are gathering as a matter of public health and safety?
I'll let Susan take that, but I believe that there's an exception for protests and public gatherings like that, and for churches and religious services. For example, you could have 500 people packed in a church or a mosque or a synagogue. And I think the government's made it clear that that's okay. And same thing for assemblies.
I don't think for assemblies, but Susan, you want to opine on that?
So is the question, can a group of 50 or more gather? Or I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, so my question is, we passed on Tuesday the amended emergency ordinances, and as a matter of public health and safety, groups of 10 or more, I think is what we had in there, were not allowed to gather in public spaces. And so I'm wondering if that ordinance is enough to give the police the legal backing to make sure that as crowds begin to gather, if we do need to disperse, we could use that as the legal backing so that incidences like are happening tonight don't continue to occur.
Well, we could, but actually the ordinance, the emergency ordinance provides in section 3 that a congregation in groups of 3 or more who refuse to disperse would be a violation of this curfew ordinance. So we I think have got that covered, that in the police discretion, if 3 or more are gathered and they are a threat to the safety of the residents and the citizens of the community or are damaging property, this ordinance gives them the ability to take whatever necessary steps need to be taken to minimize or stop that damage.
Which, for what it's worth, I don't need an ordinance to do that. When somebody's throwing a bottle or a rock at me, I don't need a special ordinance to deal with that problem.
No, sir, I understand that. I just want to make sure that we are cognizant of when the groups are gathering. There, you're obviously going to have the fringe elements that are going to try and agitate, and I want to make sure that you were legally equipped to disperse if there was that ability based on what we had already passed previously.
Yes, and I think this council member even gives the police more authority to do that.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate your question, and I think what we need to do and what we always do is have kind of a legal powwow, just like we've done with the COVID. We'll have a legal powwow. We have a phenomenal team, and we just quickly cobbled together this the curfew. But I think there are other things, Councilmember Brady. I appreciate you raising that. Tools, if you will, in an extraordinary circumstance like this that we can use to our advantage. And we're gonna look for those and use as many as we can to make sure we never have this happen again. So I think your point's a good one. I can't tell you exactly which ones we'll use, but we're gonna try to create some things that are unique that would apply in a state of emergency and where you have such disorder and dangerous things going on.
Well, thank you, Chief, and God bless your officers.
Thank you. Councilmember Mitchell, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Me.
There you go. Oh.
You got it?
Now I got you. Yes,
okay.
Sir.
I think the chief is correct on that. I believe even with my colleague, Councilman Brady, where he mentioned, I think the chief is doing it correctly, because I believe we don't want to excite it more than it is. And I think even with the ordinance that we have, I think you have to take it and use it at your discretion, but you got to be very careful how you use it, because you can use it and you can incite more and we can have more problems. And we don't want to see any of our officers hurt any more than you possibly can, because I've been involved in these different groups like that in New York long years ago. And I know how it can happen, and it can escalate more. So I think you have to do it one by one, chance by chance. You got to kind of weigh it on a scale how you're doing it, because it could escalate more. And I think they're waiting for that to happen so they can have more to come to say, look what the police officers are doing, look what this is doing, look what it, and then they'll blow out of proportion. So we have to be very mindful how we are doing it. Even though we have that authority, I think the chief would be able to make that decision case by case.
And I would add, which frankly to me doesn't mean a lot at this point, doesn't really make me feel good at this point, not much does, but up until the point where these criminal element came out, it was a very positive protest, and the feedback from those, even with very heated and very strong opinions, was very positive towards the police.
Right.
And there was a very large group.
Yes, it was.
Thanking us and who were appreciative of the freedom that we allowed them. And you know, it was mutual in terms of doing it right. I'd love for our city to have been the model of how to do this. And unfortunately, that's not the case.
Right.
All right. Well, y'all
Mr.
help
Mayor,
tomorrow morning and clean
Mr.
up,
Mayor,
putting the message out to everyone. Councilmember Griffin.
yeah, I've just got a question. I know that we're going to be pretty strict about this, but what about people like driving home from work and that sort of thing?
They're fine. They're fine.
Okay. We're not going to be stopping vehicular traffic going to and from homes and stuff like that. It's just clearing the streets.
Yes. It just like anything, we have discretion.
Okay. I just want to make sure because I know.
We have discretion. Someone's going to work. They got the midnight shift at the hospital.
Right. Or the port.
Don't get me wrong. Somebody might ask them where you headed, but
right.
We certainly will use that discretion.
10-4. Thank you so much.
So, folks, tomorrow morning, if you can help us do some cleanup, that'd be great. Please, everyone, pass the word to your own constituents about the curfew and about our solidarity on maintaining law and order here, that we will not allow this to continue. And thirdly, I'll plan an update council probably late tomorrow afternoon before the date gets on. Let's just tentatively say 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. We'll have a phone call with an update if that's good for everyone.
Yes, sir.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sir, Councilmember Ware.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do you have a time that you'd like to assemble tomorrow morning to help with the cleanup?
Let's process in the morning and we'll put the word out.
I would say probably start at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Okay. Okay.
The idea of everybody being in Marion Square, and that's where Jack's good. Maybe you can help even with a message around that.
Okay, good.
I got to tell you, it's not going to be a pretty sight. I promise you that. But everybody being there together in unity, I think will send a very strong message.
8 o'clock in the morning.
All right, Chief.
I'll be there.
All right.
God bless.
All right.
All right, guys. Stay
Great
safe.
night.
Thanks for
Everybody take
everybody's hard
care.
work.
Everybody be safe.
God bless. Thank you.